Oh, hey guys, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince to be exact. Welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. You know, for the past few days, since my college graduation, I've been feeling kind of a bit cautious and scared. Why? Because I've been sensing something evil approaching my territory. You see, I've been by my window keeping an eye out for a certain bird. A raven, to be exact. Why? Because this raven, named Diablo, seriously, that's his name, is the servant of the very Disney villain who has haunted my childhood ever since I was 3. And the one person I would also want to get back at for all the trouble she's caused all these years. Here she is now, folks.
Why, it's Maleficent.
That's right, folks. Maleficent is the one Disney villain who has traumatized my life ever since I was 3 years old, and who has been considered to be the most famous out of every Disney villain who's been part of Disney's animation studios. She also happens to be the subject of today's blog. However, first, before I get into the main blog, let's talk about the Disney classic that put her on the Walt Disney map, Sleeping Beauty. When the young Princess Aurora is cursed at birth by the evil fairy Maleficent, the baby is taken by a trio of good fairies who raise the girl themselves, hoping to avoid the spell's fulfillment. Nevertheless, at the age of 16, the beautiful Aurora falls into a deep sleep that can only be awakened by the kiss from her betrothed Prince Philip. Knowing that Philip intends to save Aurora, Maleficent takes him prisoner. When the good fairies launch an escape attempt, Maleficent transforms herself into a spectacular fire-breathing dragon, forcing Philip to defeat her in mortal combat. Now, to be honest, this movie truly is a Disney classic, especially with the use of Peter Tchaikovsky's ballet music. It's romantic, dark, even beautiful. With this film being one of my childhood favorites, I'll give this film 100%. And ever since that film, to this day, Maleficent has been considered to be one of the most famous and most recognizable out of any Disney villain in history. Plus, she's been making several appearances and cameos in TV shows like The House of Mouse, Timon and Pumbaa Show, The Little Mermaid Show, even ABC's Once Upon a Time show. Plus, she's been also making appearances in the nighttime show Fantasmic at Disneyland. She's also cameoed in Epic Mickey. Even had a large role where she was manipulated by Master Xehanort and did her own evil deeds with Pete in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Even last summer, she was mentioned by another evil fairy in a children's TV show. And now, just recently, I saw a really interesting movie that mainly focuses on the mistress of all evil herself. Released on May 30th, 2014, the movie is, well, Maleficent. Okay, here we go. As a young girl, Maleficent possessed radiant beauty and a pure heart. Her life in a quiet forest kingdom was a happy one until a fateful day when invading humans carved a swath of chaos throughout the land. Maleficent's selfless heroism during those dark times would become the stuff of legend. Though it was an unexpected act of betrayal that would ultimately shape her into the dreaded mistress of all evil that she is known to be. A diabolical transformation begins to take place when the vengeful Maleficent seeks to defeat the noble invader's successor and places a curse on the infant daughter Aurora. Later, Maleficent discovers that the child she once cursed may possess the power to not only pull her back from the dark side, but to also restore the peace in their battle-scarred land as well. So what did I think of this film? Well, the movie was really surprising, but a bit cliched. It's almost similar to Frozen in a way because of both have a twist of true love and have seemingly a villain heroine. Also, both have one betrayal of who they thought were their true love. However, it does contain a dark plot very similar to Return to Oz in a way. But I loved every bit of it. Like, why do I like this film? Well, let's move on to Mustang Notes and find out. This film was the fourth time the Walt Disney Company made a live-action reimagining of their animated features. The others being 101 Dalmatians from 1996, Alice in Wonderland from 2010, and Jerry Bruckheimer's The Sorcerer's Apprentice. This film has gone through a big difficulty of deciding who to direct the film. Tim Burton was originally planning to direct the film, but chose not to pursue it. And Linda Wolverton was commissioned to write the script for the film. But on January 6, 2012, Disney announced that Rob Stromberg, the production designer of Alice in Wonderland and Oz the Great and Powerful, would direct the film. On October 2012, James Newton Howard was hired to write the score for the movie. Also on January 23, 2014, it was announced that recording artist Lana Del Rey will be covering the song Once Upon a Dream from the 1959 film Sleeping Beauty as the title song for Maleficent. With a budget estimated at $130 to $200 million, principal photography began on June 18, 2012 in London. Seven-time Academy Award winner Rick Baker designed the special makeup effects for the movie. Post-production began on October 5, 2012. Filming reportedly took place in Buckinghamshire, in the Buckinghamshire countryside. Now, I want to say that the scenery in this movie was really beautiful and also dark at times. Some of the creatures in this film almost looked like they came from films that either James Cameron or Guillermo del Toro would make. There was also this one scene in the film that made me think of the Nutcracker Suite in Fantasia. Now that's basically all I have for Mustang Notes. So let's move on to the cast of this movie. And also, while I talk about the cast for this film, I'm going to compare them for how they are in the 1959 movie. Now our main character, Maleficent, is played by none other than Angelina Jolie, and I can't really seem to, imagine anyone else being in the role other than her. Anyway, in this film, Maleficent isn't really as evil as she was in Sleeping Beauty. Now, let me just make this a little bit clear. As a child, Maleficent did live peacefully in the forest known as the Moors, and she did have a close connection with young King Stefan until one day he did betray her and stole her wings, but only as proof that he killed her so that he could become king. In that whole backstory about that whole event was really shocking in the beginning of the movie. But it was nice to show a whole new, different side of Maleficent, and also made me feel sympathy for her. But there was one part of the film that made me feel kind of jealous. Yes, her ability to fly. Because ever since my high school years, I've always dreamt of having wings on my back. I mean, if you could tell by the picture that shows the beginning of all my blogs, you can understand why. I mean, who wouldn't want to have wings on their back so they can fly. And anyway, back to Maleficent herself. Instead of having pig-headed and beak-faced goons, she has an army of warriors that look like they're made from trees. Plus, the idea of iron being her weakness was a wee bit interesting. Also, there's one kind of spell that she never kind of uses in this film. I mean, sure, she uses her fire spells and sleeping spells in this film. And she does use, like, her wings to create sonic waves and also fights with physical strength. But she never used her thunder spells. However, like what I said, like she's less evil in this film. I think I like her better as a villain. Now, originally, Jude Law was considered to play King Stephen, but later the role was given to Charlton Copley. I don't think I've heard of him, though. Anyway, in this film, King Stephen is considered the villain. I mean, I already said, like, he and Maleficent had a connection when they were kids until he betrayed her. However, like, in my eyes, the way Stephen is in this film is almost like Hans from Frozen. Next up is our second main heroine, Princess Aurora, who's played by Dakota Fanning's sister, Elle Fanning, while Vivian Jolie Pitt and Eleanor Worthington Cox play as a young Aurora. Out of all the other little girls, Vivian was the only child that wasn't even afraid of her own mother in costume, since the other kids in casting would run away in fear of Angelina's appearance. Okay, in this film, she does come across Maleficent many times as she grows up, and comes to believe that Maleficent is actually her fairy godmother. Even as a toddler, Aurora seems to have no fear of being near Maleficent, especially when she hugs her and lets her pick her up. Later on, Maleficent does take Aurora to the moor, and the two eventually become good friends, but she does remain unaware that Maleficent is the one who cursed her as an infant. Alright. The Diablo for the film, under the name Diaval, is played by actor Sam Riley. He is Maleficent's pet raven and her servant, who can, under Maleficent's command, can take on the form of, well, either a human, a wolf, a horse, and a dragon that kind of resembles Maleficent's dragon form from the original film. Speaking of which, the scene where he becomes a dragon and fights King Stephen and his guards almost reminds me of the way Maleficent is fought in Kingdom Hearts. But, to be fair, I'm not calling him Diaval. His name is still Diablo, enough said. Prince Philip is played by Australian actor Brenton Thwaites. He plays a less active role in this film, but he does meet Aurora, and they do seem to fall in love. When Aurora falls into a deep slumber by Maleficent's curse, Maleficent finds Philip and takes him to the castle, hoping for his kiss of true love to wake her. But unfortunately, Philip's kiss doesn't work, and Maleficent's kiss of friendship does. And last but not least, our three good fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, are under different names in this film, and are referred to as the Flower Pixies. Flora, who's known as Knotgrass, is played by Imelda Staunton. Fauna, who's known as Thistlewitch, is played by Juno Temple. And Merryweather, who's actually named Flittle, is played by Leslie Manville. Now, as we all know, that these three do grant the infant Aurora with magical gifts, and when Maleficent curses her, they take her into hiding at the woodcutter's cottage and raise Aurora as their niece. They claim that they are very good with children, but it turns out that they are incapable of looking after the child, so while they struggle living like normal mortals, Maleficent secretly cares for the princess. And now to move on to my final word to this film. Above all, Maleficent was one mind-blowing movie. It shows a whole new, different side of her while keeping it in the Sleeping Beauty style. Even though I still prefer Maleficent as a villain, the story was surprising, dark, and beautifully. And all the characters had interesting changes to them. Also, it does a better job explaining a villain's backstory than Rob Zombie's Halloween. I'll give this film a rating of 95%. Well, that's all for today, everybody. So, be sure to join me for my next blog. You guys, I'm going to be taking a look at a nutty film next time. So, in the meantime, I've got a score to settle with an old friend. Watch out, Maleficent, because Dr. Orro, the Mustang Prince, will hunt you down when the time comes. Mustang power!